$50 restore grant last week.
I'll be when you're ready. Okay, we're gonna call the Columbia County Land Bank Corporation meeting to order, roll call.
Matt Rowe,
Oh, here, I didn't hear you say.
Ron Knox, PJ Killers here, Brenda Adams,
Here.
Suzette Bowie,
Here.
Patrice Perry,
Here.
Chris Watts.
Here.
That's cool.
Okay, everybody got a copy of the July minutes? We need a motion to accept the July minutes. I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. CEDC services contract.
Mike, do you want to run through this?
Chris and I worked on a draft copying what we have as the county contract for CEDC and CEDC's contract with the two IZAs. We reviewed it with Andy Howard with CEDC's counsel. We circulated a copy. Chris and through Robert Simmons and Chris Brown and Chris Watts worked together today, I guess, to a point where it's the form is in agreement. The term is for a 6-month starter kit contract beginning July 1. And I believe we agreed on the fee of $15,000.
That's what's in there.
You'll recall that there is a grant that's been awarded for administrative activities. It's much higher than that, but until we get a sense of what amount of work is involved, we thought that this would be an appropriate fee to get started, so that there's more money available for whatever other activities are eligible to be spent, the funds are spent on.
And is that 15,000 for 6 months?
Yes,
So it'll.
And then
be
I would-
revisited.
I would imagine if it was a 1-year contract, it would not be divided by 3 times 12 or 6 times 12. We have been doing the county IDA at which meets every other month at $2,000 a month. So, I would think that this is attempting to cover some of the startup costs that were involved.
Okay, has someone seen this yet?
Yeah, he didn't weigh in on it, so I don't know the answer to that. I took a look at it, it doesn't, there's nothing in there that's objectionable to me. I made a couple of recommendations and I think probably put the one clause in. And,
The first one.
yeah,
We're happy to wait till he does that. I mean,
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do we need board approval to,
I don't know the answer to that.
Brenda, do you think?
You mean BOS approval?
Yeah,
I don't
You're a
think so, because we're
separate
separate corporations.
okay.
exactly.
All right, I'm just-
But I do think it would hurt to wait for Rob to weigh in. So if you'd like a motion to table until.
Yeah. Entertain a motion to table per
So-
county attorney's review,
Second,
and then if he approves it, then we'll sign it.
Yeah.
Not hurry for your money, right? We don't have any.
No, you sent it all to us last month.
Haven't spent anything yet. Okay,
Thank
so
you. We just wanted to get it into.
He's a good treasurer. by the way.
He knows where the money is.
Or isn't, yeah.
It was more important to get the form of the agreement, and we're very confident that.
Any idea what we're talking about, like, Chris, any idea when we're going to receive these funds?
There's a few paperwork steps that we still have to go through. One of them is the federal employee identification number, which we now know the process to get that. We tried to do it online. It didn't work. They asked us to do it by fax. That has a 4-day turnaround time. So that's just submitting paperwork. And then with the state, you have to register at the Department of State as a New York State charity, but you need the federal EIN first.
Yeah.
So that it's a sequence of events. But HCR is very enthusiastic about getting us into contracts, so it'll be a quick turnaround time once we get that documentation.
But once you get the any number, if you can forward that to me, then I can start
Yeah.
the process to get the bank account set up.
Great.
Okay, anything else on that?
No, thank you.
Discussion, funding, homes and community renewal.
Yeah, A and B are a little bit tied together. In addition to the administrative services grant that we've already won, There's the open round of just capital funding, so this is kind of almost a non-discretionary funds that you can do much more than you can with just the administrative funding. It's a relatively open period until the end of this year. There's a separate pot of funds available to land banks that haven't been able to access this money before. Again, I don't think we're going to have a tremendously large budget. We actually, when we submitted the administrative budget, we capped it at $1 million operating budget, so that's the most we could still request. Why this is tied into B, the vacant rental improvement program, HCR has been really open to the idea of land banks using their funding to leverage the vacant rental improvement program. Just for a refresher, that is $50,000 per unit for rehabbing currently vacant residential units. If you're going to rent to people at one income level and then 75,000 at a different income level, those income levels are 80 and 60%. It's not a lot in the rehab world, 50 or 75 a unit. So I asked if we could use land bank funds, the capital funds, to help leverage those funding sources, and they said that was okay. So
Great news.
it's great news. Yeah, basically now we're just trying to figure out the details of what that program design would look like. Their first pitch back was, well, create a program that the land bank offers grants directly to landlords. And so, well, that's two different programs that somebody has to apply for. So we're trying to figure out how to streamline that. But the idea was when we apply for that capital budget to build in a separate line item just for that program, so that people can apply for that instead of getting 50,000 per unit or 75, they might get 75 or 100.
But we still have to stay within those income guidelines, 60 or 80%.
60 and 80% in the back end, and that's going to be up to the individual landlords that apply for that program, you know, whatever they want their clientele to be. And again, that's a local program administration grant, so a nonprofit will apply for the money, create the program, then individual landlords could apply to it, and then if the idea is if they qualify for that program, they would automatically qualify for the land bank program, and we just figure out how much extra they need.
And is there any data that suggests what an average would be?
What the rehab would be.
Yeah,
It's gonna be all over the place. I mean, some of these units are going to be not even potentially residential units right now, because you can actually take vacant commercial spaces and convert them to residential under this program. So the scopes are gonna be all over the place.
What about advertising for that?
That's a good question. We actually just saw something from the Essex County. Actually, I'm not sure if it was the Essex County Land Bank, because similar to our situation, the Essex County Land Bank is administered by a pre-existing nonprofit called Pride of Ticonderoga. Pride of Ticonderoga has been around for a really long time. They just put something out about a week ago, a solicitation. They're calling it a pre-application. So it's a solicitation to the landlords in their service area saying, hey, this program exists. We don't have the money yet, but if you're interested in it, you know, telling us them collecting how many landlords would be interested in it, or is going to make their application much more competitive. So we were considering doing something similar. The question is, since the land bank wouldn't be administering the program and neither would CEDC, who should that be coming from, right? Who would be the response? It's going to have to be the nonprofit that we partner with that applies for the program, and that's an open question right now.
And are these single family or multi?
Anything up to 5 units. So as long as it's 5 units or below, and then the individual
Could be one-
landlords.
could be a single family.
Could be 1 unit, yeah. As long as it's going to be a rental.
I think the Pride of Ticonderoga spoke at the last NISAC conference on this.
That makes sense.
I
It was,
I think there's a slide deck for that if I can find it.
it would have been, oh, Nicole
the
Justice
spring.
Green, would have been the
Yeah.
last name, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure if it's not on their website, we can get it
Yeah.
through her.
So is the next step to identify the not-for-profit partner, or is the next step to identify what we might want in the bucket in terms of funds to supplement?
I think it's
the
to,
nonprofit
I think
partner.
it's to identify the not-for-profit partner, and perhaps at the same time, do a pre-survey so that we have something to show the not-for-profit partner as to why they might want to partner with us. And that would not be an excessive amount of work for CEDC to undertake under its other housing responsibilities. I think we would want to talk with them as to how they advertised it and get their survey questions. I mean, it's not, but my thought would, if you could identify a couple of partners, they might be hesitant until they know what your demand is. And this way we would, and if we found out that we couldn't find a partner, we'd still have the data to make the application and figure it out when it's
Later.
awarded.
Right. Is it the usual suspects, Repco and Hudson Valley Housing, or Hudson River
And
Housing
Gallup,
and Galvin?
yeah,
Keep forgetting Galvin.
yeah. Rucco is you know, we have ongoing conversations with Rucko about a variety of things. They're really interested in coming up to Columbia County and actually building single-family housing subdivisions. They're interested in coming up in a pretty big way. And Galvin is our rural preservation company. So you start to get into questions of capacity. You know, Rucko is now handling the +1 ADU program for 4 counties on top of everything else they were doing before in the beginning of this year. And everyone always had staffing issues throughout the year, so it's really just a question of capacity. The program itself has an October 3rd deadline. So that's for the vacant program. And then the land bank application deadline for the supplemental funds is just the end of the year.
But this wouldn't be something for just like the small town mom and pop that's gonna,
It's exactly who it's geared to. Every time I have a conversation with the state about this program, they explicitly use the terms mom and pop landlords.
Is anything under 5, so a lot of them.
And your total portfolio has to be 20 units or below. So you can't, just because you have smaller housing units out there, smaller buildings out there, if you've got 100 units, this program's not for you.
so we're not gonna get to Phil Gavin's, we're gonna get.
Right.
Not that he.
No.
Sorry,
And-
Phil.
And we have been engaged with Galvin to identify what services they're currently providing under the auspices of serving as the county's rural housing preservation company. They get about $115,000 a year. So I mean, they have limitations on what they can do. They tell us that some of their programs there's a waiting list to get the services because the funding isn't available, but they have more of a demand. So what we're trying to do on our CEDC housing side of the coin with the county is identify where there are synergies. We don't want to be competing with Galvin, but some counties do have 2 rural housing preservation corporations, and there's some indication that that they would not find that as aggressive or an affront if we were partnering together to get additional funds, because the cap on these, you can't really do much if the cap is $115,000 a year.
It's
But also
purely
the-
for staffing.
Yeah, and their portfolio is really limited to Hudson.
Well, they're willing to come in and make a presentation at either here or at the Economic Development Committee, because they feel that I kept telling them that, and they kept telling me no, and I put them to the test of, well, put
Show
on paper what you're doing in the county, because you're not getting credit for it.
Right,
And so I think we are learning more. I think there's more that can be done, but there are limitations based on the funding that's available. So we have been working closely with Galvin in our role as administering the city IDA with their 2 housing projects. And so I think there was a level of trust that has developed, and Chris has worked very closely with John Parson. So, I think that we want to leverage what they're doing and expand it. We're not looking to do it. We don't have the capacity to, we do better if we can check the box off that we accomplished it and someone else is managing it.
I'd love to see any work they've done outside of Hudson. It escapes me if they have, so I'd be happy to see it.
We've got some senior housing in Chatham, they've got the Civic Motel, which is technically not Hudson, but they're their homeowner and foreclosure prevention counseling services are countywide. Most of their development happens in the city of Hudson, but it just happens to be the easiest place to develop things.
But the senior housing in Chatham is somewhat homeless housing in Chatham.
But is that more?
It's like
Seniors that are on waiting list are being.
Which one is that? Which, is that the one up behind the old
The old
Price
Price
Chopper? Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
We just want to be sure we have given them the opportunity to fulfill the commitments they have, expand to the extent they're interested and capable and committed to, and fill in the gaps around them to the extent that there are others. We don't want to be in a situation of every time something comes up, get an outside of county partner, if we can have an opportunity to work here, which is why Chris works very closely with Habitat and with other organizations.
So do you have a schedule for them? Is it possible to get them to the next Economic Development Committee meeting, or is there something?
We're going to be packed with broadband.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to forget that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to have an hour subcommittee meeting before the EDC meeting to discuss, give an update on broadband. And we could update you on that later.
Is EDC Monday? It feels like we're due. right?
No, it's but September.
Oh, we were just there last month. Okay.
It's
So
every other month.
Okay.
Can I just circle back to 1 second? So for instance, this Pride of Ticonderoga or whatever group it is, they put out a, like a feeler, like a questionnaire to try and get individual mom and pop.
Who would be
developers
interested if we
grant
had the program?
Yes. Okay.
And I think we could also, I think you and I talked about this, we should send out an email to supervisors and ask them to provide a list of the small developers or
Suzanne,
rental owners.
you had given us the list of apartments. Would a single family home that was converted into a two-family get classified, or would the property description not include?
It should have if
Yeah.
the, building inspector provided information to the
And I don't remember, there were what, 150 on that list, or?
At least it was pretty honest.
Yeah,
But supervisors, I
Yeah.
mean, this could be just a cross-check. Supervisors tend to know who those people are in their communities,
but
but they also know if they're people that are gonna work with us and be interested in the program.
I think the marketing would have two fronts, or three fronts. One, obviously, the supervisors, but to take the list that we have and do a direct mail to them where it's personalized, merged letter, not a form letter, but personalized. And then, do some, marketing through, even an advertisement, the banners on the newspaper's website, some social media, so we get credit for exploring the opportunity. Right, it's more to raise the awareness that, we're working on things because there's a problem. Because I think a lot of people, don't really feel that that the problem will sort itself out with market forces.
Yeah, there's another approach. You could also maybe talk to some accountants and attorneys who do
Yeah.
real estate in the area.
And we have that list because we solicit them every year for membership.
And unfortunately, a lot of them don't respond, but if you
Yeah.
have the right person reach out to them, I mean,
Yeah.
I know who my mom and pop type clients are who are rehabbing homes and hopefully maybe either to flip or to rent. That's another approach that you could take, and I could, reach out to some of my clients and say,
Yeah, I think building permit departments are gonna help a lot because I think what they'll pick up is people that have had open permits for a while and keep renewing them and just need a little bit.
And we'd have to put a relatively short timeline on the results.
Yeah, turnaround's gotta be pretty quick.
But, if they have the program already in place, and we can modify it for our use and why not just get it done?
right,
Was there something that tied property owner income into this?
Not for this one.
Not for this.
No, that was for the ADU program.
just,
Okay.
just the rental.
Just the rent.
And I think
Back
if Ron were here, I think he would say this, there's a great interest in renovating existing stock
That
as
was-
opposed to building new stock, and this would be one of the stronger initiatives to allow us to get,
The strongest that the
to have
state's
that
offered.
conversation with people.
And then obviously it'll position us to be able to find the right partner because, we aren't able to oversee and manage that ourselves.
We put in for a clone machine, but it hasn't been delivered yet.
See, the Saratoga Casino Hotel now has a robot that delivers meals and towels and things. We need something that can do that.
AI is here, look out.
I know. You need a letter of reference? I can do it in 45 seconds.
okay. Next, acquisition policy.
Acquisition policy, we don't have anything in front of you today. This is on the discussion list. Basically, if you'll allow, my recommendation would be for this policy to be discussed in the acquisition disposition committee meeting. And then brought up to the board. We've got three or four different examples. That we've been looking at internally and with some legal consultation to see which one might make the most sense for the county. But it also sort of reflects what we built into our application to ESC, which we've discussed before. The town sees something on the foreclosure list that they would like to see potentially in the land bank, or if the land bank sees something on a foreclosure list that they might like to have in the land bank. There's a conversation between the land bank and the town board. Town board discusses it at a town board meeting. If they want to, then we figure out how it gets into the land bank. The actual details of that are what we need to hammer out in any kind of AD policy, and I think that should start a committee meeting. So there's no vote on that. That's just, we'll figure out when the acquisition disposition committee meeting is, and that could be the first item.
Okay,
Yeah, did this acquisition take place after the county owns it?
No, so the acquisition
Once it
policy
hits
covers,
Chris's list. Once it hits Chris's list, then it goes back to the 10 as a possible foreclosure.
right, so or even if they know, I think some of the towns, well, Suzette will know for sure, what's likely to be on that list. So if the town wants to get a head start and give the land bank a heads up, say, hey, we're interested in this property being developed for this use, would the land bank consider it? I don't think it's beyond the pale to start having that conversation. It's still likely going to need to go out to public sale. That's sort of what we need to, hammer that piece out. But I will say that, because we had this conversation at the last meeting about how do you determine what the surplus is? If you're not going to use one of these methods, there are land banks around the state that have determined surplus using these new methods in the amendments to chapter 11. But those are on properties that they're getting that are underwater. These are like the buildings that have been or vacant for 15 years, or holes in the roof. There's no surplus there. So it's easy for them to demonstrate that. I don't think that's the boat that we're going to be in. I think we're going to need to find different ways to determine the surplus.
I totally disagree with you on that. Right
Yeah,
now.
I was
Okay.
gonna say same thing.
There's one property in 2017 that is even remotely something like it with a structure on it. That is even remotely something that could be lived in. One of
Okay.
10.
I'm
The
happy
rest
to be
of
wrong
them
about that.
are
There's a reason they're not being paid in taxes.
horrible.
And because I think there's such small inventory that anything that could be, that had value to it was snapped up.
Right, and the other way to look at that is maybe these are gonna end up, even though they have to be destroyed, maybe they'll end up going for more than what the taxes are right now, I don't know, but we'll see soon.
It would depend presumably where they're located, what the capacity is to access water and sewer, what the ability to build a septic and well on.
But they're all rural, that's the funny thing, there's nothing that is in like Greenpoint where, there might be the ability to. Even if it's a horrible house, you could spend a little bit of money and turn it into the cabinets, they're just not there.
Well, I will happily be wrong about that.
I will,
That's
I'll
fantastic.
send you some of the pictures, they're
It
just.
wouldn't be the first time Columbia County had a unique situation. It seems that we specialize in unique situations.
All right, so I guess we'll do that in committee or start that conversation in committee. And then for future meetings, is it Health and Human Services that's right after this? Is that why we're
Yeah.
hearing that? That seems to be working, so we'll just continue that.
Sort of jams my day up, but that's all right.
I'm trying to get you out of here quick. Okay,
Well, it's the day you're here.
I'm selfish, it's all about me.
So may I just ask you a really quick question? In terms of the property that we had in Canaan, that I've identified the two butters for that, and I'd like to reach out to them before it goes to foreclosure. Can they come in and pay? What's the process for them? Can they just offer to pay the taxes, or is there a more onerous process?
No, we can't do that, they can put a letter in,
Okay.
a formal request to give this amount of money.
Mhm.
But it would have to be after the foreclosure went through, and then it would go to committee, and then we vote on it, and, we've had this conversation before, it's. I frown upon that.
We've been trying to steer away from any private sales.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, because there's just so many pitfalls along those.
okay. So just let it go into foreclosure and then let them know about the auction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
all right, and then for acquisition disposition committee, we'll figure out what that's going to be. That'll be a separately scheduled.
Chris, do you want to give an update on the ADU event?
Oh, sure. So we had the kickoff meeting at the Columbia Green Community College. Wasn't just last Thursday, it was Thursday previous. We had 80 people in the room, about 15 online, so a really good turnout. It was literally standing room only capacity of one of the bigger meeting rooms in the basement of Columbia Green. A lot of the folks that were interested seemed to be qualified applicants. They had questions that we hadn't anticipated, which is always going to happen when you get 100 people asking them questions. So we're working with HDR to get answers to some of those. And there were some folks in the room. There was an architect, another young woman who deals with modular homes. They've got a product that can deliver 650 square foot homes for $150,000. But they're high end. Maybe I'll share that link. They're really good looking buildings. But it seems like we have a head start on all of the other towns that won round 2. No one else has done their community event yet. Our applications are open. They were open on that night. We're going to leave applications for the program open until December 13th. That's really to give folks, that's about a 4-month lead time. to give folks enough time to talk to their towns, talk to their building departments, zoning, talk to architects if they architects, identify general contractors if they want to go their own route with that. The idea is that by the time they apply, everything is kind of lined up, and the only thing they really need is just the funding. The most important piece is going to be the gap financing. None of these projects have been coming in for under the grant amount in any of the other communities, which is to be expected. It's about, once you take out the admin, each individual grantee gets $112,500. It's just not enough to build a 600 square foot unit even.
And the concern we have is that because of the income restrictions.
Yeah.
How will someone, if they're overburdened with their own residence?
Yeah.
Unless they are an older couple who have built equity into their property, be able to access those funds. In Ulster County, there has been discussion with several of the community banks, including Ulster, where I'm involved. But we're gonna be talking with other banks in the county to see if funds could be set up or access to a expedited process could be created that would assist them with some of their CRA requirements. I think obviously the issue will be still, they'll have to, they'll only do it to the extent that the person interested in getting the funds has appropriate credit.
You have an estimate on what the 600 square foot would cost?
I think, yeah, about 180, 160, 180.
What's that with? Infrastructure too? A length?
That's just for the bill.
Assume you own the land, right? Because you're building it.
Yeah, they own it.
Is the 160, 180 all in with, like a slab or whatever, or is it just with?
Yeah, once you get if you need additional water and sewer, which, in many cases, you may not. Once you get the slab down and the full build on, it's capping out at about 180. Some of the bigger ones are coming in at 220, but for a 600 square.
So they're looking at financing between 65 and 70,000
That's better.
on average.
And then, they raise the fact that, someone got all done and realized they needed to extend the driveway, 20 feet. And that's, everything adds up,
I will say the HCR is aware of those concerns about the AMI limit of the homeowner. So there will be subsequent rounds of this program. If that changes how they address the people who have already won the grant when it was under much more restrictive terms, I'm not sure. That's for them to figure out. But they have heard the feedback that the program's really restrictive and difficult to run when you cap the AMI at 100%.
But that was their cap, not ours.
That's their cap.
Right.
I think that, from my perspective, I don't know that I'd be in favor of letting anyone build one, but to the extent that you did build one, if there was a more expansive income cap, you are required for every $10,000 you get, give that much percentage off the rent for the person who's going to use it. The purpose was to try to.
So then it has a public purpose.
I pitched that yesterday to HCR and they really liked it.
Did they?
Yeah. So we'll see if that goes.
I'm sorry, I don't know the banking model, maybe PJ, if you're financing $60,000 to $70,000 at current interest rates, what's the monthly payment on something?
We figured this out one.
Yeah, we did
Around
that.
6% at mortgage rate now, roughly.
So is that a 2-year, 3-year, the small mortgages small loans like that are pretty short term, aren't they?
They go 10 or 15 years.
Oh, really? Okay,
You at least go 10.
okay.
Well, your most likely your home equity lines of credit, once they convert to a term loan, they're 10 years.
And there's 203K construction loans too, which are typically around the same terms, about 10, 15 years.
Does USDA do these kinds of loans?
They do some,
Because all of Columbia County is in a USDA loan territory.
yeah, it depends on how they're willing to define home improvement.
Okay.
Because I went through the same thing with the state. There's
Complicated.
there's a program, the Affordable Housing Corporation, which will give you money for home improvements. And I said, well, you're improving your home if you're adding an ADU to it. It did not go for it. So USDA. would.
821.55 a month.
For how many years?
10. Then your taxes will be adjusted a little bit somehow, because you have more
And
value.
that's not including taxes or home.
That's right. Insurance.
So you're at 50.
Utilities.
So now you're at $1,200 a month, which
Yeah.
is the cost that, with 10% on it, or 20% return to the homeowner, you're at $1,400 a month. And, it's half the price of, any other place you could rent in town. But they're only gonna be one at a time, and we can only do 13 with the $2 million.
Well, and I'm thinking a lot of the ones that we're gonna do are gonna be related to family,
Yeah.
extended family or
Yeah.
close family.
That's actually been one of the more common requests.
Yeah.
Do I have to rent it out to someone, or can I just put a family member in there? It's like,
Right.
you have to rent it out, you could charge them zero.
Right.
But it's like getting 2 new cars. So cost effective.
Thank you for the math.
Who can afford 2 new cars right now?
Yeah. Well, they'd add up to about $75,000.
Right.
It'd be a 7-year loan, so it'd be only 45.
So you're saying that next month we're gonna meet the same time right before Health and Human
I
Services?
think that seems to be,
Okay,
that just seems to be this. And then we'll figure out the acquisition disposition committee meeting.
We did see a issue where there was a land bank, this is a thread where anyone in a land bank asked each other questions. And there were questions about demolition over the weekend. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
And basically, the questions were if in the city of Albany, or in Albany, the Albany County Land Bank, if the city of Albany has an emergency demolition, the land bank pays for it. So I think, it would be something we want to look at, because if there's funding available, but I think we should meet with Sean McGuire. And, learn, we don't have to find successful programs that other people have done and,
Don't have to reinvent the wheel.
yeah, well, I'm gonna email that woman for her survey questions.
so the demolition would be done by whom?
Well, when they have an emergency contractor, they actually said, they all indicated that what they do is 2 or 3 contractors show up, look through the place and give you a written bid on an envelope, in the parking lot, and, you pick one, and, I guess the commissioner of whoever, building inspector or whoever in the town would authorize it, but they need someone to pay for it, right?
Right.
And you can't wait till you
Right.
go to a town board resolution or some other funding. So,
And there are buildings in towns in Columbia County that are sitting there waiting to fall down because there's no.
and I think what I'm looking for is how do we find other things land banks can do that are productive when you have the issues related to the Supreme Court case limiting, land bank's role. And you have the situation that you're describing where there really aren't properties that,
Right.
that would fit the model, so.
Great, but every one of the, most of the properties that I viewed were perfect for that.
So if there's state funds available that can be used, or they can be convinced to allow us to use them for other things. Where's that hole?
Yeah,
So Tistria was looking for, not Tistria, yes, Tistria was looking for. The new habitat pilot, she had identified a piece of land in New Lebanon, but the neighbor bought out the other neighbor, so that couldn't happen next to him. But they have like $1.5 million, Habitat has $1.5 million to do a pilot for this new house that they want to do, but they're looking for either 6 acres or 12 acres in an RE1 or RE2. Is there anything on our list that's 6 or 12 in an RE1 or 2 that might be attractive for that project? Because that would help them spend the money that Dee Dee got them.
6.
I don't think, at least for the foreclosures, I don't think there is.
No, the closest would be that one in Kindred, but that's the one that has the house from like 1775 on it
Oh,
or something.
Lord.
Yeah, it's the one
Oh,
that's the really
something.
high assessment.
Well, just bear in mind,
Not the high
that's
assessment.
that's what Habitat's, I believe, she was heartbroken this week because that deal fell through. 6 or 12 acres, and they would be an equivalent number of houses, I think. 6 to 15 houses, depending on the acreage. And they are under a time pinch to find land for that.
No, we checked it out.
Does anyone from the public have any comments?
Nobody has.
Remember during COVID in the stadiums, they put fake people? Right.
Yeah.
So you all done there, Chris?
Yeah, I've got no one online.
Motion to adjourn.
Oops, so move, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
I won't make any political reference to what,